just going to be tying some more Prince Nymphs. Doing brown for the tails, duck bites. And we're just going to make a little thread bump at the back to help separate. Take 2 duck bites, and you can use the natural curve to separate them. And you want to have roughly about the length of the shank. Okay, and you're going to tie them in. Measure your distance first. Transfer it over and just put 1 wrap. Angle them slightly because it'll twist as you tie it in. Just going to tie those in again. That's great. There we go, that's a much better tie-in. See, it twisted a little bit, but I can fix that since we only got 1 wrap on there. There we go. That's split nicely. Yeah, happy with that. I'm going to leave the buyouts in along the sides, wrap them in, and what that'll help to do is fill in some of the gaps where the lead is in the bottom here, so your thread doesn't sink in completely. And it also helped to build the body up and the taper slightly too. Now what we can do is pull back the biot ends if they aren't too short already. And the same thing, just capture those in. And that'll help to hold the bead in place and also just fill in those grooves from the lead. There we are. You can check to make sure it's somewhat smooth. You have a little bit of lead poking through there. I don't think that'll be a problem for us. Okay, since this is a silver bead head, we're going to go with some uni-French silver and a medium. I'm going to try the medium. That's a little bit thicker than the small and the other one I have. And we'll see if it's just a little too thick for this size. This is a smaller size 12. Just going to get a length of that. We'll do up 5 in each type, and then I can choose what I like. Now, the uni-French is basically a modern version of an old way to wrap mylar around a thread. So it has an oval shape to it, and it's flat. Lays a little better on the fly. Can be hard to come by, but it is a fairly common traditional tying rib. If you don't have it, you can use wire, you can use mylar, anything shiny. Feel free to use what you have. Stick that in our material clip. My materials are kind of all over the place there. We're going to go with this peacock earl today. Doesn't have to be your best, doesn't have to be the poofiest. For a size 12, you can probably get away with 2 peacock earls, anywhere from 2 to 4, depending on the quality of your earl. In this case, we're going to go with 3. This bag is a little kind of on the medium thin side. Now we're going to want to tie it in from the tip. That'll help us build the body. Before we do that, though, we just want to get rid of the brittle ends where it connects onto the quill. I don't want to rip for me today, so we're just going to cut them off. Now for the other end, get them together. Just take your thumbnail. If you rub it along your thumbnail, it will break at the most brittle spot, and that will stop you from breaking halfway. You can cut them off with scissors, but that method works well. And we're just going to clean off the butt end. And in this case, we're going to tie it in right behind the thorax. We tied in the uni-French just at the end of the lead. So if you tie it in that direction, as you're wrapping, you naturally kind of pull back on it, and that'll help the peacock fronds to poof out and give you a nice Full peacock. I'm going to use some hackle pliers on the end, but you're welcome to wrap by hand. And for the body, we're going to go under and over. In this case, it looks like 3 was the right amount. Capture it in. 3 wraps behind. Capture it again. A little bit farther over this time. 3 wraps, secure it. That's not going anywhere. You can finish that tie-off point on the side, doesn't have to be on the top. If you are practicing these, you may want to try it to finish that on the side, so that way you're left with less of a nub to possibly push your top biots around. I just happened to finish at that point. So, before we're going under and over, so now we're going over and under with the uni French. Actually, I really like the size of that. I was worried it might be a little on the thick side for this one. Got 6 in there. It looks like a little much. I'm going to spread that out here. Say 5 is a little more typical. Yeah, I think I'm good with that. I'll stick with that. So this time I'm going to be tying this off on my close tying side. I'll have enough for probably 2 more out of this. Maybe 1. Let's cover that butt end a little bit better. There we go. Now for this set I'm going to go a little different because I have a lot of these. They're really nice, almost like a hen hackle. They're quite soft and webby, but I think they're going to make great legs. So instead of hackling this, I'm actually just going to do a traditional nymph leg, left and right. And that'll take advantage of the soft nature of this. Should allow more movement in the water. Traditionally, you would just hackle. Let's see what I got in here. Use some webby dry hackle, pretty much anything you got. Hand hackle. It's a nymph, so it's a good time to use up whatever you got handy. So we're gonna go for about half the hook gap length for width for the leg per side. Angle that in about a 30° or so. 2 wraps in, 1 behind after it's bent over, or 2. That'll hold her in place. There, I'll just clip the waist out. Okay, you see the part we took out there, we'll do the same on the other. This first fly is going to be a little webbier than the next two, but it'll all even out. So again, we're going to go about half to quarter of the shank, or not shank, sorry, the gap height for the leg. We're going to try and match it up with the other side here. 30° angle, give or take. You can adjust it after you get your securing wraps in. It's not gonna hurt nothing. 3 over top, fairly tight. 2 behind to lock it in. And it's not gonna go anywhere. And again, traditionally you'd be just hackling and pulling it out of the way, and you're more than welcome to do that. I just want to use up these feathers, and they're a little bit too long to hackle with. Honestly, you do get a better looking, much better looking leg on a nymph like this, because it adds a lot more movement to it. And it gives you a better profile, generally. Just a couple securing wraps over top the butt ends there. pin them down. So when a fish is viewing your fly, it's going to be generally viewing it from the bottom up. So that's what they're going to end up seeing. So that will give it a better silhouette. And as you fish it through the water, you're going to disturb the water with the split tail. You're also going to disturb the water with the legs. And that gives them basically a feeding profile. This is just a tractor pattern, but it's meant to imitate a lot of different types of nymphs. One second, actually dropped my white quill. Same thing, goose bite. This one's got a few damaged ones there, but I think we can get by with the two that are on top. White goose bite, it's easy to come by. Plentiful, cheap. And you don't need huge ones for the top here. So, if you have smaller goose bites or even a different bird like chicken, you can still get by fine with it. These are just an attractor top for, I think it's supposed to represent a wing case, but it is an attractor pattern, so it's not imitating any one specific type of nymph. You get them separated like that. And you can see one's on top of the other. This will allow you to adjust them. Main thing you want to do is try and get those even if you can. And if you're older and your eyes are bad, just use your hand and you can feel the ends if they're flat, or your finger. You can feel that a lot better than a lot of people can see it. And they don't have to be perfect. We want to have them tied in so they're a little bit longer than the body, so they're just hanging over. I actually grab these backwards, so I'm just adjusting them again. Normally grabbing the other hand. One second, we'll get back there. There we are. Alright. So I normally tie these in opposite of the way a lot of people tie them in. There's a couple reasons for that. It makes it a little bit harder to gauge the length on it, but basically you want to have it. You're going to gauge the length backwards from your viewpoint. Have them up to your red collar and just past where you're going to be tying in. Transfer them over. Lay them down on top. Put some pressure on with one finger. Give it 2 to 3 wraps on top of each other so you have a very tight tying point. Like that. And they should be flayed out nicely. You can move them around at this point, that's why you only want to do 2 or 3 wraps. But the whole point of doing them this way is you can adjust them and then flare them back, and you can check your length. The other nice thing about this is your tie-in point's actually underneath. You're going to flip it over and tie it again. A lot of times these will get pulled out as fish bite them. So if you're tying them in this way and then folding them over, you're going to get a much more secure tying point. But the other way to do it is just simply tie them in, lay them back. I'm going to do some wraps here. I'm just going to hold my legs down. Don't move around too much. I like to do about 7 wraps back. That'll make a little collar, as you can see there. That's about as thick as you want to go. Now, some people like thicker collars, some people like really, really thin collars and don't like to build it up. Totally personal preference, so whatever you want to go with is good. The fish are not going to be looking that close. So we're going to cut that off. There you go. Now there's probably about 2 thread wraps or so left, so I'm just going to cover up that spot where the scissors cut off the base. That's more than enough. I'm going to do 2 wraps back, a little tighter than normal. That'll stand those up. And we're going to fold these back. Take 2 wraps just in from where they bite in at. Get them pretty even. Now, depending on your style, you can have them flared out quite a bit. You can have them tight to the body. That is all personal preference. Whatever you think looks good. In this case, I'm going to have them just kind of going out the side and just flaring out a little bit there. And if you did want to adjust the flare on them, I'll do that here. Before you do those, I normally do 3 tight wraps after the 2 that are holding them in place. So if you do want to adjust their angle a bit, if you're shortening them, you can just pinch them like that. Of course, if you want them wider, you can spread them and then get your 3 tight wraps on there. You can see that just slightly brought them in. And I do actually like that a little better. So, let's profile. And you can finish this off 2 ways. You can use a half-hitch tool. And just throw a half-hitch over the bead. Tighten it. Alright, get your whip finisher. And a whip finish, and try to get right over the spot where you had those tied in, so you're not building too much up on the head. That's a silver Prince Nymph. And it's also tied with uni red A-dot. Maybe you can use a burgundy, you can use a brown, you can use black. There's no rules there. The red 8/0 gives you a nice hot spot on the collar. But you can switch it up. You can use yellow, you can use orange, green. I've even color-coded mine based on the weight. So if there's more lead or less lead, you can change your color, and then you know which ones are heavy in your box if you need to get down deeper. And we'll secure it with some head cement. And I like to put in a little bit of Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails on top, just because bead heads take a beating, and this will give it a little bit of shine and pop and help to hold in those biots on top. Just adds a little bit of durability. If you want to just use Sally Hansen's, that would be perfectly fine too. We have silver Bead Head Prince Nymph with uni-French foil for the separations, and I think I do actually like that. That's a good length. We'll do 5 of those, and then I'll switch to a thinner one. We'll see if there's much of a difference. Just gonna rotate here for a minute while this dries up. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. If you want to tap that like and hit the subscribe up top and see more of this later, we'll be doing a bunch more Prince Nymphs. Well, thanks for joining me, everyone. It's Nimby with silver Bead Head Prince Nymph today. Gonna do up a bunch of these later. See if we can get a couple dozen done. And thanks for hanging out with me. You can catch me later on tonight. Thanks kindly.